So, Luke, first of all, we're standing here in the TF. Well done on what's going to look like a great success for you.
Yeah,
in your
certainly.
European.
Absolutely fantastic.
What we're here to do today is to discuss on behalf of my YouTube channel, Mark Jordan Pharmacist, and in conjunction with PharmaBuddy, which is a closed forum for pharmacists nationally across Ireland. I just want to get your opinion on a few things that we've been discussing on our forum in particular in the last couple of weeks, primarily to do with CBD. So we'll open up the conversation, I suppose, with where you think the legislation lies at the moment. There's a little bit of confusion at the moment nationally in terms of the interpretation of the legislation in regards to CBD. There's a few business owners worried across the country. Where do you think CBD is going? Do you think it'll stay as a food supplement? Will it be reclassified? Do you think there's going to be any changes in the interpretation of the legislation, or indeed are they going to continue on as they are?
Well, the way I can see it is we're in a very grey area here. People have opened up cafes and are openly selling CBD bud and CBD hash. They're not making any claims about health or anything like that, and people are using it for whatever reason they want to use it for, whatever good they feel they're getting out of it. But now we're hearing about raids all over the country, and I'm having people contact my office. You have a look at the legislation and you see that they're not actually doing anything wrong. You have a look at European law and you see they're not actually doing anything wrong. So it's very hard to know what way the government are going on this, why they're doing what they're doing, but they're going to have to regularise the situation sooner rather than later.
Okay, so it's an interesting take on it. So ultimately you think that it does need due consideration going into the future, and that whether or not they leave the legislation as it is, clarification is required.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, people at the end of the day need to have as much information and as much proper regulation as is possible. But at the moment, people who are involved in this business, I mean, they're looking at the law. They can't see what they're doing wrong, but still they're having their products seized off them. So it's unsatisfactory both for the businesses and for the customers, and from the point of view of not leaving us in a situation where we have anarchy.
So that's an interesting segue there. You mentioned that there probably is going to be, due calls for reclassification or similar. And I noticed recently enough, having spoken to him, your colleague at one stage, TD Eamon Ryan, a leader of the Green Party, is an advocate for full legalisation of recreational use of cannabis. So what's your opinion on that?
Oh, we definitely need to go down the road of taxing and regulating recreational cannabis. I mean, at the end of the day, street dealers don't ask for identification. If we had a proper regulation, you would see a situation where, well, what's happened in any other country where you have proper regulation, you see a safer product. You see a situation where the sellers have way too much to lose to sell to people who are underage. All you have to do is look at the Netherlands, and if you go there, every now and then you could walk past a place where there used to be a coffee shop. You ask someone, why is it closed down? And the reason why it would have been closed down is because there would have been a sting to see where they're selling to under 18s, and as a result of it, it's probably more difficult to get it over there when you're under 18 than it is over here. So legalisation would also allow for proper, it would guarantee people as to the standard, the strength, the type of what they were smoking, and also get rid of the danger of adulterants being put into it. Whether that be, over the years, it's been reported that stuff like ketamine, horse tranquilizer, or in the case of the actual green, the bud version as opposed to the hash version, where there's basically fluorescent paint sprayed on it, etc. So we would end up in a regulated and a taxed environment with a safer environment for the people who used it, and that would have to be a good thing.
Okay, so one of the things that you touched off there was indeed the notion that with liberalisation comes actually increased regulation, in your opinion, and I think Eamon Ryan's opinion is the same. Now, I suppose from my point of view, open disclosure, I'm conscious of the fact that we had a cohort of medical doctors in recent days say otherwise. Now, one of the things that struck me about their argument, though their clinical argument is indeed correct and the statistics that they're citing are correct, one of the arguments, or the basis of their argument, happened throughout prohibition of cannabis in Ireland. And I'm wondering, is there statistics to show elsewhere, for example, in Colorado or in the United States as a whole, otherwise? So in terms of what you're saying, you said that increased liberalisation or to legalise recreational cannabis would indeed allow for increased legislative control over the drug and use of the drug. Do you think that those statistics would change, and would they change to coincide with your argument for increased liberalisation or recreational use?
When you say statistics, you mean would there be any more people using it than there are now? Or?
Well, I think some of the statistics that they were citing was increased teen use, and the statistics that I observed elsewhere in the United States didn't actually weren't in line with what they were saying. Their main argument was, of course, that they weren't in favour of loosened laws, for lack of a better description, on the use of cannabis, and that we were wandering mindlessly, I think it was the quote, into liberalisation of recreational cannabis, and therefore we were set to see an increase in the statistics of teen use, associated psychosis, and various other side effects that they were citing. I'm aware of one statistic only from Colorado where teen use actually declined after legalisation of medicinal cannabis. Do you think Ireland could follow that, or do you think that the cohort of doctors that cited these statistics are correct?
Well, the evidence coming from Colorado is that actually it leads to a reduction in teen use, and you have to look at, all you have to do is look at the Netherlands. They haven't legalised it, but they have a policy of tolerance towards the use of cannabis there since 1976, and that's been going on for a long time. You look at the amount of people under 18 who use cannabis in the Netherlands, and you look at the amount who use it in Ireland, and basically there are less people in the Netherlands under the age of 18 than use it in a country where it is completely and utterly unregulated. And suggestions that it might cause mental health problems for young people, it depends what studies you look at. It depends on whether you come to the conclusion that it's causation or correlation that brings about these results. But there's one thing for definite. If you already have a predisposition to mental health problems, I can tell you this: if you get dragged before the courts because you use cannabis, you have your name emblazoned across your local newspaper, you end up with a criminal record, which means that you can no longer work with children, you can never become a doctor, you won't be able to travel to the United States of America or Australia. Someone please tell me how the hell that helps anyone's mental health. All it does is make the situation worse for them. Obviously, there's always going to be a group of people out there, with no matter what drug we talk about, who will have particular problems with it. What we've got to do is fight for harm reduction, not fight to create a situation whereby they actually destroy people's lives with the law. From the stats that I have, there are over 100,000 people in Ireland with a criminal record for possession of cannabis. That's 100,000 people who can't adopt a child. That's 100,000 people who can't work with children. That's 100,000 people who really cannot develop their career in any way, because if they fill in their job application form correctly and if they don't lie, then they will hit a stone wall, which will mean that they can't progress. And then on the other side, someone will come out and say, but it's statistically proven that people who smoke cannabis don't do as well in life. Well, if you have a criminal record for possession of cannabis that pretty much treats you as if you had a criminal record for being a paedophile, how the hell could you progress in your life?
Okay, so there's a lot there, and in fairness to you, I do agree that impeding people's progression through life by way of criminal possession of cannabis is in a lot of respects very unfair. Just to go back just momentarily, just for the listeners, one thing that I actually do know is the substantia nigra hasn't fully developed until the age of 25. So that tends to be where most of the dopaminergic release of, or those cells that release dopamine into the brain reside, and overexposure to cannabis in instances like that, certainly in small mammals like rats and mice, have shown an increased tendency to develop things like psychosis. So there is a basis for what the cohort of doctors are saying, but having said that, as Luke has rightly said, I suppose the stringent nature of the law in Ireland probably does impede an awful lot of people, and it's probably not good for their mental health to be exposed in the manner that they are. So that's fair enough. But just as I suppose we were moving towards the use of cannabis more so than CBD, I think finally I'd just like to speak briefly about the use of medicinal cannabis in Ireland, where you see it going. What's your overall opinion on it? Do you feel that we're going to see a time in Ireland where it's going to be more widely available? Do you think people like Veera are going to be a success, or are they going to continue to run up against brick walls like they have done largely to date?
Well, in relation to Veera, I think we'd already have to say, if ever there was a phrase in politics, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, well, she quite literally, by being the squeakiest wheel of all time, quite literally got the oil that she needed for her daughter. And it seems to be having phenomenally positive health effects for her daughter. It means that instead of having to go to the hospital maybe for up to 5 months in the year, now for the last 2 years, they pretty much don't have to go at all. So from that point of view, it's been a success what she's done. Now the latest fight that she has is, and look, she's absolutely delighted that she's getting access to this medicine, but the latest situation is that her family have to travel between 4 and 6 times in the year to The Hague to collect this medicine from the Transvaal clinic, when in fact we should be able to see a situation where this is delivered to our local pharmacy or delivered to our door without having to travel, and ultimately that it would be produced in Ireland. And Veera, being the tenacious sort of individual that she is, has went off and discovered that this product is already being delivered to the island of Ireland. And she's actually found out the name of the company, Miller & Miller, who are delivering it to the island of Ireland, not leaving it there because she doesn't give up no matter what it takes. She has contacted Miller & Miller and asked them, could they be the agent that brings it into the Republic of Ireland? She spoke to one of the top guys in it, and they told her absolutely no problem with this at all. She's went back to the HSE and provided this information to them. Unfortunately, she has been stonewalled and hasn't heard anything back since. But we now have a situation in Ireland outside Veera where there are numerous people have gotten licences, but we're being told by Simon Harris and by Fine Gael that one of the reasons why this hasn't been ramped up and more people haven't been able to get access to it is because there's a problem with availability. Well, if you talk to the Transvaal clinic in Eindhoven, they'll tell you that there isn't a problem with availability. The only problem that they have at the moment is being able to bring it into Ireland, not that they can't get enough of it. So what we need to see sooner rather than later is, for no more than the situation with CBD, we need to see Simon Harris to regularise this, and for it not just to be within his gift to hand out a licence if there's enough pressure put on him. People who need it for pain relief or for what other ailments that it helps, they should be facilitated in getting this medicine.
Luke, we'll leave it there. Fair play to you. You covered a lot of ground there. Really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us today. My name is Mark Jordan. This has been Luke Ming Flanagan. This is a Mark Jordan Pharmacist YouTube video in conjunction with PharmaBuddy, the PharmaBuddy site for pharmacists. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you again.